Welcome everyone to another episode of Kiwi Talks. I'm happy to be speaking with Kristen Lundman, who is the co-founder of Hatch Investments. If you want to invest in American shares, she knows all how to do it, and her digital platform is amazing. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I always enjoy talking to finance people because I feel like I'm smarter by the end of the show.
Okay. So I'll just like set you straight right here. I'm not a finance person. I'm just like a regular human being, Canadian Kiwi, hanging out with my family in New Zealand. And I just love digital stuff. I love technology. I love kind of disruption and innovation. And so I totally fell into finance. So I'm the first to say, yeah, absolutely. So all of Hatch are non-finance people and proud of it.
That's actually really good because that means...
You looked really scared because you're like... I should preface this very quickly because everyone's like, but wait, I'm giving you my money. So just to say that non-finance people, no offense, we love you finance people, relate to humans like, more. We know how to speak. We don't use the jargon. We're not part of this exclusive industry. And so we kind of bring the tech, and naturally we're all like, we all understand investing and we're investors, but we wouldn't wake up and be like, I'm an investor. Like, we're just humans who want to do good things with our money and grow money, so that we can live our best lives. But we are part of Kiwi Wealth, and that's where the finance stuff comes in. So we're kind of got this backing of Kiwi Wealth, Kiwi Bank, and this Kiwi family. And so anytime we need to tap into, like, obviously we've got super strict compliance and really safe platform. And, we take great care of people's money, huge responsibility there. And that's just because we're able to tap into all of this amazing expertise. So that kind of, hope that makes sense.
Oh, that's good though, because that means you can explain it in simple terms to the average listener. Because I have spoken to some investment people and sometimes my eyes just glaze over. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking. You might as well be speaking Chinese.
People don't do it. And it's why people don't do it, because they're like, it's not for me. It's for you. It's not for me. So, yeah. We're all about getting rid of that.
So how did it all come about, this idea in Hatch?
Yeah. So Hatch came about with, I was approached by Kiwi Wealth, and they were looking at, they recognized this move of kind of fintech, which is financial technology and disruption in that area. So all these cool platforms overseas like Betterment and Wealthfront, that were helping this kind of digital generation. So I don't want to say millennial because we've got huge amount of, older people on Hatch, but certainly digital. People don't necessarily want to talk to financial advisors or through humans or go into face to face. What they do want to do is take back control, and the way to do that's through technology. So first of all, with technology you can lower fees. Through technology, you put the control back into kind of the consumer's hands. So just think about all the apps that you're using. Like, you get to dictate when you go and where with Uber, where you stay with Airbnb, how you travel. Like, all these things are now like there's this mass movement of power to consumers' hands, and finance is the same thing. So Kiwi Wealth recognized that, and they were just like, do something fantastic, relevant in the digital space. So originally they weren't thinking investing platform into share markets. That's not at all what they were thinking. But we did a lot of research, and we're like, people think investing is really boring. It's not for them. And how can we get people over that hump? And so we did a lot of testing. We did a lot of chatting with customers. Again, I brought this really great group of startup people, these, other digital disruptors into Kiwi Wealth, and we kind of formed this bubble. We were off to the side, and we spent a lot of time with Kiwis. And one of the tests that we did was put really well-known brands that you and I know, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, in front of them, and they would grab the phone out of our hands, and they're like, when can I become a shareholder in these companies? Back 18 months ago, this wasn't a thing. Now quite a few platforms are doing it, but it wasn't a thing then, and it was really hard to own a slice of these businesses that and it's investing and shareholding isn't all like the understanding. It's not all that hard when you think you just own a tiny slice of Microsoft. You use their products, You understand their, their growth trajectory, and you might look into their sales and their revenue, but it's not that hard to comprehend how a company like Microsoft makes money, or Apple or Lululemon, like whatever and then you're like, oh yeah, I just want to own a slice of that company, so I benefit from their growth. And that it's as easy as that. So that's how we started. And so we just thought that's the best thing to get people over the hump of becoming from being non-shareholders to shareholders. That's okay. And then of course we've got future stuff coming, but you asked it at their past, so there we are.
So what was the process before when you wanted to invest in the American share market before?
There was only one process at the time, and you had to pay exorbitant fees at a traditional broker, and you had to telephone someone when the markets were open. And so for an Apple, if you wanted to buy a share in Apple, first of all, you had to buy whole shares. So we were the first to bring fractional investing to New Zealand, where it's like you don't need to buy an $1,800 Tesla share. You can just invest $500 in Tesla. That's fractional investing. So traditionally, you would have had to phone up. You would have said, I want to buy 10 whole Apple shares, which would have cost, I don't know, maybe $3,000 at the time. And the fees to do that would have been far in advance of $150 just to do that. And that's before you take in, pulling it back out on the other side. And so people just didn't do it because it's too hard. Because the share markets are open when we're sleeping. So who wants to be ringing up some random person on a desk, Anyway, it was all just too hard.
Yeah, fair enough. And how many customers do you have now?
Oh, I think we've cracked the 50,000 this week, which is pretty cool. Because we've, pretty small team. We were at 7 people for ages. We kept things real small. And then COVID, I think we grew to about 10, and then we went into this crisis, which, was obviously awful. But of course, a lot of people were renewed interest about investing. And I think, firstly, they had time on their hands. But I think more importantly, the interest levels kind of peaked because the markets crashed. And if you're my age, you kind of have seen the 2008 GFC, and you saw what the markets have done from that. And so the share markets have really just that were quite badly hurt during that kind of market crash, and then they've rebounded. And so if you'd invested during that crash, you'd be pretty happy right now with the money that you would have made on the share market. So I think what this correction did was everyone was like, this is kind of our 2008, and a lot of good quality companies and their shares were on sale. So we had huge amounts of volume, huge amounts of interest, and so we had to hire a bunch of people. So we're sitting at about 21 people now, and we're all about building a fantastic Kiwi company, sustainable business. We've got great, support from Kiwi Wealth, and just kind of slowly building out this really cool platform with our investors.
Yeah. Because I imagine there are some people with regards to COVID-19, they're a bit panicky in terms of whether they want to invest or not. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, well, probably the most concerning thing I saw as a human was like a Kiwi citizen as a human. We're all humans, aren't we? But I think it was that I think there was something like 3 billion of outflows of Kiwisaver. So what that told us was there's a whole bunch of people in New Zealand that didn't understand the share markets and investing in Kiwisaver. So what they were doing is, let's say they were in a growth portfolio, which were young, and when you're young and you have tons of time in the markets, that is generally speaking one of the most accepted portfolios to be in. It just means that they're kind of more, your Kiwisaver is more invested in stocks and share markets as opposed to stuff like bonds and cash. So it has the potential to grow faster, but also it has potential to be quite volatile. So when the markets crash, share markets crash, most of your Kiwisaver's in it, your Kiwisaver balance goes bleh, not great. And so a lot of people panicked, and they were like, I've got to get out of Kiwisaver. But what happens is when you kind of panic and get out of the markets is you lock in your losses. Everything's on paper right now, and it's not actual money until you sell, and that's what a lot of people did, which was super sad because the markets have subsequently rebounded. I hit all-time highs yesterday, and so people have lost out quite a lot of money, and so the crisis made people do some pretty weird stuff. But in terms of investing, we really focused on education. We've got a getting started guide, so getting started course to investing through Hatch that we really pushed, and about 10,000 people completed that. And it really took people through what are share markets, what's risk, and how do you buy your first share. So it was really key for us not to have a bunch of people flood onto the platform that didn't know what they were doing, that were doing all sorts of weird stuff. It was like, find your feet, like educate yourself, empower yourself, and then just start small and build as you go. But we've got lots of really big investors on the platform as well, and they just saw it as a great buying opportunity.
That's good though, because I've always felt that there's quite a few people out there that think that residential property is the only way that people, and obviously it's a big part of how Kiwis invest. So it's cool to see these platforms which allow people to more easily invest in other areas.
100%. Yeah.
But do you still get people signing up to the course on a daily basis?
Yeah, we do. And we tend to recommend it when we can sense, like we've got a lot of customer support inquiries, and, people reach out to us quite a bit. And we've built a community on Facebook where, a lot of investors are learning from one another. There's some pretty advanced investors on that group. And so it's a good place to kind of learn. And so what we suggest is join the Facebook club, take the course, because you're probably not quite ready if you're asking us questions like this, or you're, potentially showing some weird behavior. So with investing, like if you're looking to buy and sell and make a quick buck, we're probably not the platform for you. So we're pretty. We try and stay pretty deliberate, and that might be as part of Kiwi Wealth. Like it's really important to them and the wider Kiwi family that we're really thinking about, is this the best thing? Like there's this idea of best customer outcomes, and it's like, is this the best thing for you? Like only 1% of traders make money, 1%. The rest of the investors, like you really should just stick to the basics and just grow your wealth in quite a boring way over time. We kind of get flags even still today, like to this day, and really push people towards education before they get started.
Yeah, because I feel there's a lot of get rich quick schemes out there. And I think some people think that you can make money really fast, but I feel personally when it comes to shares, it's kind of a long-term thing as opposed to a short-term thing.
Yeah. Well, that's what we've seen. And I should just kind of, like when I say educate yourself first, it's not a lot. Like literally our course is 10 days, or it could just be that you're getting familiar with what an index fund is, and you're researching which ones you should be looking at. Because you can just start, learn by doing is really important. So you can start with $100 or $500 and just kind of get your feet, find your feet and learn as you go. It's a great cost of education. So when I say kind of educate yourself, empower yourself, that I'm not talking about going in to get a degree, or because no one will ever feel like they're smart enough. Because investing is really complex, and even like the best investors in the world get it wrong. So it's really important. Keep it simple. Start small. Just get started. But yeah.
Because I joined last week and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do anything yet until I talk to Kristen. Just in case.
I can't give you any advice. No. I'm going to get in trouble. I can't give you any advice. However, when you talked about the long-term thing, let's just it is long-term, because if you and this is what we see on Hatch, and why it was so cool we started with the US share markets. You've got companies like Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft, Netflix, Disney, Nvidia, AMD, all these companies I'm naming, Uber, Lyft, are growth companies, and they're companies that we use every day. Airbnb is going to IPO this year and become public, so we can buy shares in them as well. But when you think about it, these are not companies that are like they are growth companies, which means that in 10 years, Amazon wants to be 100 times bigger than it is now, which means that it's going to be more valuable than it is now. And how we know that is we know that what is their vision. We can look at their customer acquisition and their sales and their revenue. We can look at, the cult following of Tesla, and that they've built this Apple brand of cars. And I think, so it's what we're seeing on Hatch is people are buying into these businesses or funds. You can buy all sorts of fantastic funds that wrap a number of these businesses businesses up into a basket, and they're in it for the long haul because they're looking for some serious wealth building over time, which is time in the market. It's not like in and out, in and out, in and out. Because like I said, 1%, that works for 1%. And it's probably not you, Reese. Like, no offense.
It's all right. It's all right. I don't take any offense. But I think the only thing I was a bit nervous about was the whole tax system, because you know how America has a really weird tax system compared to
you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about that. I'll put your mind at ease right now. So tax stuff is sorted for you. It's invisible behind the scenes. And then you get to claim back in New Zealand, which is again behind the scenes. So we've got all that stuff sorted for you. With tax. Yeah. So you just ignore it. Like it's invisible. We got your back. But in terms of the tax you pay on this side, I think people have made it seem like that's a barrier. It's not at all. All you have to do is if you make over $200 in dividends a year, you just claim that as revenue on your IR3. We give you a simple number. It just goes in a line on your tax form at the end of the year, and that's it. Super simple. But an interesting thing to note is the US share markets isn't well known. Like a lot of the companies I talked about, again, is just the tiniest portion of the wider share markets. I'm just pulling out some really popular ones on Hatch. But they're not huge dividend paying companies. Like dividend paying companies tend to be more in New Zealand, or like real blue chip companies that are sharing their profits with their customers. But a lot of these companies I named, which again are the most popular in Hatch, they don't pay dividends because they're looking at reinvesting, like all their profits are going back into the business to grow. Right. So tax is pretty minimal in New Zealand if you're using Hatch. Like it's actually a non-issue, really, and we make it easy if it is. Now, when you get over 50,000, which we've got tons of investors on Hatch that are, there's a slightly different way that you calculate your tax. But again, we do it all for you at tax time. Make it super simple.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Because that was my main worry. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
We should have reached out to support. Man, we're always on the other side.
Well, I knew I was talking to you anyway, so I was like, I'll talk to you first.
all right.
I'll go from there.
And then I know you're now going to ask, is now a good time to invest, aren't you?
Well, when is a good time to invest? I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, and it probably depends.
Oh no, true.
I did find it interesting. I did find it interesting because I looked at the top. I think it's the top 20 traded shares at the moment, the American shares, and it was just interesting seeing the different. You know, Tesla was like top, and I think I saw Virgin and Boeing, which obviously the aviation industry is not doing too well at the moment. So
no, those are probably not great long. I mean, that may potentially, if you're banking on that industry to come back, that would be considered a long-term investment. But on your point about no one knows if it's the right time to invest. Like we know the right time to invest is today. If you're investing for the long term, like there's no better time. And we know that there's going to be a market correction. I mean, the markets are pretty, like I said, they've rebounded really well, but there's still a lot going on in the world. Like we don't have a vaccine yet. Some economies obviously are struggling. And so the markets are a little bit detached from this economy. Certainly in some industries, the tech industry certainly is detached from it for lots of different reasons. But I think again, there's probably going to be we know that the markets go down, so there's going to be kind of a bit of a correction, which is a bit of a drop. Is there going to be a full crash again? That's what we don't know. Like if there's a vaccine, probably not. It'll probably just be a wee bumpy for a while. But really, share markets historically have gone up over time, and the ups outweigh the downs. And so, that's like today. There's no better time to invest.
Yeah, because
you just have to kind of like steel yourself and know that if I see red in my investment next week, I got to be okay with that. Like I just have to stick to my plan.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is with us as humans is the fear of the unknown really gets to us, like not knowing what's going to happen. And
so true.
And I've seen there's various economists, and I think even Bill English said something in terms of the recovery of the economy being a V shape or a W shape. Yep. And it's hard to know. And then obviously the subsidy is supposed to finish, I think next month, isn't it? And so these are all factors that probably weigh on people. And then obviously if you're struggling to make ends meet and you've lost a job, it's probably
absolutely
a bit difficult to justify investing at that stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no doubt. And I think I saw an article yesterday about Kiwisaver and even people looking to want to access that for debt, which would be so horrible because that's be like people's retirement savings, it would just be horrible. So with investing, invest what you can. You're assuming that you've got an emergency savings. You've got a job at the moment, not any really scary debt, like bad debt, I should say. So credit card type stuff. If you've kind of checked those boxes, you've got a job, you're better to be putting your money in the share markets than in a savings account, which is making, you're probably losing money at the moment because the interest on the savings account is like completely eroded by the cost of living. Like it's just doing nothing there. So aside from having money that you can access quickly if you need it, but yeah, if you don't need your money and you've got it, you should be investing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you've lost your job, that's when you're tapping into your emergency savings and really hustling. And that it's tough times for some, no doubt.
For sure. One thing when I was Googling around, I noticed that there is a bit of misinformation. It tends to be in regards to you guys compared to Sharesies. Can you just confirm for me exactly what the difference is? Because I think some people think you guys are the same.
Yeah, we're not the same. No, we're not the same. They're probably a year or two ahead of us. Totally love what they're doing. They have a real passion for entry level, like democratizing investing for millennials. So this group of people that initially, again, didn't feel locked out of the property market and yet want to do something with their money. And so I don't want to. I'm not sure. I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I know that's kind of their positioning. And so what they've done is built a platform that's really accessible with not a lot of money. So you can get into the share markets with a little bit of money, and their pricing is set up like that. So I think initially a lot of investing platforms are going to look similar. Like you've got your share market, so you've got your US, your ASX, Australian, and New Zealand. Like those are the main ones, right? And I suspect that over the next 2 years, all of the investing platforms will have those markets. And then you're going to have some funds. So you're going to have like your baskets of kind of like investments that you can just plunk your money in and not have to pick and choose your shares. So you kind of got that. But I think what kind of shakes out is like where your home is and what makes best sense for your money. And so you have to look at things like, fees. You have to look at how much are you investing and the fees relative to that. So I'd say that our target markets are a little bit different. So we tend to have slightly older target market. Those that are our average portfolios tend to be a little bit bigger. That's not to say everyone started with a little bit, but I think over time, I think our visions are quite different. So while we are an investing platform, we have a really strong vision to be like a money platform. So that's like even moving into banking. We're part of the KIWI group, so it's something we've got some pretty cool opportunities like in our family to do that with. So yeah, I think I just think you have to compare how much you've got to invest. Where's your community, and what are some of the perks that each investment platform offers you, and you'll find your.
So in terms of the exchange partners you work with, so with the platform, in terms of the money and how it works in America, like the process of who it goes through, like who's your exchange partner that you work with? And
so we work with, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask in terms of how secure it is, because in this day and age with people being able to hack, different servers and accounts, and how secure it is.
Yeah. So we were really careful about the partners that we chose, both our broking partner as well as our foreign exchange provider. And so our foreign exchange provider is actually owned by Alibaba. And so they're an Australian company that were acquired by Alibaba, so have huge amount of resources at their disposal. But I think obviously we use we've got a fantastic tech team. That's where we've come from. As our background is tech, and so we're really strong in that area. We're basically have looked at security, best security practices in our partners, done huge amounts of due diligence due diligence on them. And then we make our privacy policies and all that free, all that freely available on our website. But in terms of what happens is we actually pool the money. So the foreign exchange partner doesn't see your information. All they see is we basically deposit daily, a couple of times a day, a huge amount of money. They just convert it and then pass it on to the US. And this is what they do. They run massive e-commerce businesses all around the world. Those are their key clients. So they're full professionals in actually moving money, and we're just using them for this one part of their service, is moving our money over to the US. And now once it hits the US, your money is basically secured by things like the Securities Exchange Commission, for against fraud. The companies that we work with there are highly regulated. There's insurances in place if fraud does occur, so that you can go back and claim for your money. So in the event of bad stuff happening, there's stuff in place as protections of consumers. So yeah,
wow.
we feel comfortable with who we work with.
You've really thought this out. I'm impressed.
Well, I had to do all the due diligence. So before we launched Hatch, I swear I was became an expert on Securities Exchange Commission law. I was literally right down into the code. And you have to do that with the help of course, all the Kiwi Wealth lawyers. It was really important to know exactly when you're taking care of people's money. You've just got to know this stuff inside out.
Well, yeah, people become very, very cautious with giving anyone money. So yes, it's well justified.
Right. And the shares are held in your name. Like Reese, if you were to buy into, I don't know, what are you going to invest in? Say you're going to invest in a clean green energy fund tomorrow because you look like a clean green kind of guy. Do
I? Okay.
Or it's a gender diversity ETF fund. So you're promoting all the companies that have, great diversity practices in place, female leaders. Anyway, you're investing in that. Those shares are held in your name, so it can trace back to you at Citigroup, which is a massive custodian. So this is stuff that's assets in your name.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. There were quite a lot because I scrolled through all the different American companies, and I swear about 70% of them, I'm like, I don't even know what the hell these companies are. I was like,
then don't invest in them.
Well, I wouldn't, but I'd imagine, I was thinking there would be people that I'm sure would invest in these companies and don't know what they are.
No, it's because they know. It's because they know. We've got some people that are really into mining. So that's why they come to Hatch, is to access these mining companies. We have some people that work in the healthcare industry. So they know exactly the ins and outs of Pfizer or, and recognize the demand of PPE because they work in the system. And so they're on Hatch investing in that space, or those that are geeking out about the future of food or biotechnology. And so what we have found is that whatever your niche is, and New Zealand, it just happens to be tech is an obvious one because it's products that we use every day, right? Or really popular retail brands. And so it's really important that that's part of backing what you believe in businesses that you believe in, is that really understanding kind of that company. And that's the very start is using the product and understanding, their craft really. So surprisingly.
Does your own customers influence how you invest personally? You see what they're doing and you're like,
No. Okay. I'm going to admit something. I was really anti-Tesla, and I was anti-Tesla because I remember reading his management practices, Elon Musk. He's crazy, crazy genius guy. And I remember reading a really big article in Wired about him, and I was like, I just am really struggling to invest in a guy like that. He's not likable, But I guess pioneers of tomorrow aren't generally likable. But I was like, nah, I just can't do it. And I had this real philosophy of not investing in Tesla. Well, that was when the share price was at $130, and here it is today at $1,800.
Yeah.
So I kind of caved, and I invested in Tesla probably 6 months ago now. But people have paid off mortgages with Tesla.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, I suppose you're not investing in the person, you're investing in the product, I suppose, as well.
I know, but it's his, people are investing in his vision, in him. He's this crazy guy driving and sleeping under his desk so that he can, the cars are out on the production. Honestly, he is, when he puts his mind to something, That's an interesting point, because what would happen to Tesla if he left? I don't know. Apple's obviously recovered well, in the absence of Steve Jobs, but it's not always the case. I think knowing the CEO and his vision for the business is pretty important. Now, if you don't want to get that deep into a company, that's why index funds, and they're really just a basket of companies. So you can invest in a technology one or a green energy one, or basic share markets. Like if you want to invest in the U.S. share markets, there's a ETF for that. If you want to invest in Chinese markets or emerging markets, there's a fund for that.
So are you intending to only focus on the US share market, or are you going to open up?
No, we're not. We're not. And that's what I mean, that most investment platforms in the end are going to offer the same underlying stuff. And really then it's like, what are their key messages? Like, who are they attracting to their platform and why? Like, what's their business model? How are they making money? It's all that stuff that you how are they educating you, holding your hand, supporting you? It's all that stuff that you should be asking and critically looking at. So Hatch, like many others, will add kind of the basic stuff. So we're looking at funds. We'll probably look at Australian share markets, New Zealand share markets. Like, it's just obvious stuff. And then it's really like, looking into interesting spaces where we want to play after that, because we recognize like most people want all that stuff in their portfolio, and so we've got to deliver that, and then but we'll do it in a uniquely Hatch way.
Yeah. So is there anything you can tell me that you're working on that you haven't announced?
Well, I've always been a huge advocate of low cost funds, like Warren Buffett is as well, which is the greatest investor in the world. Is just like find a low cost index fund and basically just plunk your money into it and don't even think about it. Don't play the markets. Don't trade. He trades companies. He's got the bulk of his family's fortune basically in an index fund, like a basket of the 500 largest companies in the US. So in New Zealand, those funds are very expensive. Like in the States, you can get those funds for next to nothing, like 0.03% like expense ratio, which, sorry, that's like total financy term, but they're cheap as chips. Whereas in New Zealand, by the time it's all wrapped and listed here on the New Zealand share markets, they're really expensive. And so we're hoping that we can bring lower cost funds to the market in New Zealand. So not just do the same old funds that are already out there, but actually to bring something interesting. So stay tuned.
Okay, that's good. Are you going to be doing any road shows? I know you did a thing in Auckland a while back with Colonel and
we
Darcy.
love live events. We love I love Darcy. We love live events. We're COVID has put a little bit of a damper. We had, obviously would have, of course, COVID's put a bit of a damper, because even here, I think it's max 100. So what we've done is we do a lot of webinars. We do monthly webinars. We had a really cool webinar last week with exchange traded fund, basically ETF fund expert from Australia. Some of his funds are on Hatch on the US share markets. And then what else are we looking to do? We're just going to have to keep it digital, That said, we are having an investor meetup. So our Facebook investor club, we're all meeting at a pub in Wellington tonight. So that'll be cool. Bit of face-to-face time.
I'll have to join that Facebook group, I think. How many people?
Everyone geeks out on what they're buying,
How many people are in the group, the Facebook group?
I think I don't know now, like it's maybe over 6,000 or something, because we do find a lot of our investors don't have Facebook, and that's fine. It's like privacy concerns, or even just they're anti-Facebook, or like I said, age. We do have some older investors, more mature investors, but I think so we get a lot of, the investor club is good, but you have to be careful, because you have to weed out like the noise, because you get a lot of people that are really noisy about buy this or buy that, and there's such a tiny percentage of like actual Hatch investors and what Hatch investors are doing. So take it all with a grain of salt, but it's a great place to learn and ask honest questions and get honest feedback. So
okay. It's definitely something I'll consider. I'll have to definitely come catch up with you in person, I think, if I'm down in Wellington.
Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, I love Wellington. Wellington's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. Have you always been based out of Wellington? when you moved
No,
here?
well, so my parents are from here, and then they emigrated to Canada in the 70s. So I've just come full circle. So I was raised in Canada, and then I brought my husband and two little babies back to New Zealand.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
about 10 years ago. Yeah, and so
Okay.
we knew Welly was always where it's at. It's good food, good coffee. I'm like my view right now is looking at the harbor, right out to the south coast and the lighthouse, and I can walk to work. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty good for cardio, Wellington, since it's a
I know.
walkable.
I know. I remember turning around to my husband one time on our walk home, and I was like, "We hike a bloody mountain home every day."
Yeah, well, yeah, it's definitely a good way of staying fit. That's for sure.
I know. It's so funny.
Oh, that's cool. And so you've got 21 people working for you now, right?
Yeah, and we're interviewing about 3 more this week. So we're not looking to hire and grow too quickly, because it's just so important you get it right, it's important that you get it right. And we just think we're going to be around for a long time. So we're just going to get this, really cool, sustainable business inside of this Kiwi family, and be really proud of what we've done. So really great group of people. And a lot of them, I said, are not in finance. So they're just, we make sure we get people with the right attitude and initiative, and they just want to solve problems for people. And then all that other stuff will come on the side. So they're on kind of their own respective investing journeys as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
So how do you convince people who don't know anything about investing and probably scared of the word investing because they just get overwhelmed by it? Because I imagine you must meet a lot of different people from all different walks of life. So how would you pitch it to them to get into investing if they were to do it?
Well, the easiest thing we just say is you need to put your money to work, and it's not hard. So your money's probably doing nothing, just laying around in a savings account, or you're frittering it away. So let's assume you've got kind of those check boxes. You've got to have an emergency fund, and you don't have scary credit card debt. Why don't you just start putting it to work? Because we know that the share markets are a really great place for your money to grow. And so it's kind of a no-brainer when you start to compare. This is what your savings account will have in 5 years if you're keeping your $10,000 there, and this is what your $10,000 will do in the share markets. And there's this kind of saying past performance isn't indicative of future performance. So I can't guarantee you that the share markets are going to do in the next 10 years what they've done in the past 10 years, but most investors know that they're going to recover after any drop because businesses grow, and that's what the share markets are. Businesses become more innovative. They become more productive. They launch interesting things. iPhone 12 is just a perfect example that's coming out. There's this constant drive to improve businesses. And so they continue to make money, and they share that success with shareholders. And so I think, kind of showing what your money is doing here versus here, that's putting your money to work. That's not. And what kind of life do you want in your future, in the future? What are your goals in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years? If you want choices about, I want to quit my job in a decade and go traveling with my family, you got to be doing stuff today to get there. So just start something small. It's not scary. So that would be the kind of initial combo. And then I'd be just start with $100, throw it in and see how you go. And get your feet, or start with a fund. That's cool, So, and then slowly people start to kind of get the bug of it, and they're like, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. And you start to learn, some emotional kind of maturity about when your things are fluctuating and they're volatile. You start to really understand, this is what my Kiwisaver is, and this is what it's doing. And you probably increase contributions there. And, there's just this general sense of financial literacy that you start to think, it is for me. And you still won't think I'm an investor, but you're I'm actually building some serious wealth. And that's a good thing.
And I suppose it's not to get too blinded by it as well. You know how some people, I think they get too greedy, and they think they're invincible.
But those are probably the traders. But again, those are the traders. Just whenever you see or hear the bluster, they're probably not the 1%. They're probably picked it up as a hobby. It's probably a hobby now. It's probably not going to be something they're going to be doing in 5 to 10 years. Because those that are quietly and boringly building away wealth, they're not the noisy ones on our Facebook club, you know, like they're not the people that are talking about it. They're just the ones that are socking away money into some really interesting funds and businesses and just letting it grow. And they don't need to geek out on it all the time.
Yeah. Since you're based in Wellington, do you ever get to talk to government officials about policy around technology and investing and finance?
We talk a lot about safety. So because obviously regulators are here. So we have to talk to them a lot about like how we're keeping our customers safe, how we're ensuring that the right people are using Hatch in the right way. So we've got a lot of dialogue around that, like making sure that, because they just want to make sure that Kiwis are doing the right thing. You know, they're not going to end up in a worse position than what they are doing. So we talk a lot with the regulators. In terms of policy, I'd love for that. There's a $50,000 thing on the tax where that tax thing changes. And that was something brought in like in the 80s where 50,000 was quite a lot of money. And I'm not suggesting it's not, but we are investing a lot over time. It quite quickly adds up and it just makes it like one more little barrier in people's heads. So I would love to lobby for them to lift that. Other than that, I think generally speaking, the government's pretty supportive of innovation. Like the fact that we've been able to build and launch this platform, you know, in constructive dialogue with government's been pretty cool. So, yeah.
I've heard that New Zealand is one of the easiest countries in the world to start a business.
I don't know about that. Maybe. I mean, I think starting businesses nowadays generally are pretty easy. Like if you've got access to a laptop, you have a little bit of money for Google Ads, you have some, you know, creative thinking, you can use platforms to build your website and to like, I think the great thing about New Zealand is it fosters that entrepreneurial spirit. So people potentially take action, but the cost of entry for anyone with a really great idea that solves a problem, I think New Zealand's a great place to launch it. Now, if it's sustainable in New Zealand's another question. It's a tiny country, so you've got to be in a pretty like is your business sustainable here, or is this something you've got to look like digital companies, for example, have to look to overseas? But yeah, I'd say it's definitely a country of small to medium businesses. And so there's tons of resources, no doubt for businesses. But yeah, interesting point. I would say, one thing I would say about noticing the difference is I think the creativity, the user experience, I don't know if you know what that means, but it's basically digital kind of user experience and well, probably even actually like product design. So anything to do with designing products digitally or hard products is exceptional here in New Zealand. So I don't know what the education system, my kids are going through this system obviously here. And so I just wonder if there's a different way of thinking or problem solving. Like it's not rote learning. It's really challenging, thinking and creativity and new ways of thinking. And I just wonder if that then is influenced in these fantastic, fashion brands and really cool products, like recycling from garbage cans from Method, and probably there's great, so I think right down to digital products like Zero and the user experience of a real creative user experience. I think it's something that is pretty special here in New Zealand.
Is there any comparison between Canada in terms of the ease of business or entrepreneurship, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Is it quite similar?
I'd say the environment's quite similar in terms of, they're stable countries, are real supportive to business, fairly educated population, probably similar economies in terms of, like forestry and agriculture, that kind of thing, a little bit of tourism, love Canada, love Canadians. I'm obviously Canadian, but there's just something about that rote learning that just doesn't feel like they push the boundaries enough. And there's something about being on an island on the bottom of the earth, I think, has given people like this real like grittiness that you're like, we're going to bloody do it anyway, And so there's just maybe this level of complacency in Canada and kind of structure and order. Whereas New Zealand, it's like, man, oh man, when we moved to New Zealand with these 2 kids and 4 suitcases and a pram, that was literally all we had. And we flew into Wellington, and all you see are these like dotted colorful homes on a hillside, all the paint's peeling, and like everything's just a wee bit run down, the roads are like a bit run down and everything's just, the dairies from back in you're just like, yeah, this is New Zealand, it's just
Wellington's
awesome.
Wellington's quite an interesting city, I feel, compared to the rest of New Zealand, because obviously it's the only city that's kind of built up as opposed to out. And then because and you've got a lot of the houses on hills, and some of the streets are like ridiculously narrow as well.
I know. I was like, are we moving to Puerto Rico? Like, what have we just done? But then, now we're here. But I always wonder what our visitors who come visit us every year when they fly in. But then I'm like, man, it's beautiful. It's green. We've got the ocean, which we spend a lot of time in the hills and the ocean, which is super cool. But hey, I love the rest of it. The South Island, spectacular. We did an awesome trip in July around the South Island, which is great. Catlins, which is like furthest south you can get down there, is pretty cool. That's pretty rugged New Zealand, which is awesome. Central Otago is beautiful. Northland is amazing. I love like Whangarei Heads and Tutakaka Coast. Oh man, it's a great country. We're so lucky. We're so lucky.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And with this COVID thing, it's pretty sad to have this resurgence. But like, hey man, we got this. We got this. We'll be all right, and we'll be like pro, support local and buy local, and I suspect we'll be all right. I mean, there's no other place in the world I'd rather be right now.
Oh, definitely. I definitely feel the same. I've also felt that every time I've gone overseas, I've ended up appreciating New Zealand more. It's probably a bit different for me compared to you, because like Canada is obviously beautiful as well. But being born here, I think you become complacent, or you're just kind of used to everything being green and clean air, and then you go to places in Asia or even in Europe, and you're like,
and the pollution and I know, and there's nothing like traveling. That's also such a mind bender that we can't just get on a plane, because that is a favored Kiwi pastime, isn't it, to travel and to explore, and that's just so crazy to think. When is the next time we're going to do that? It's insane. But I agree. It's somewhere that we're really, we're thankful we're here. Pretty cool that we're bringing up some Kiwi kids. I've got a son who's into cricket. Like, I didn't even know what cricket was, 10 years ago. I'm like, who plays cricket and why? I asked him last night, actually, because we were rewatching. Sorry, I don't know if you're a cricket fan, but we're rewatching the Grant Elliott, the Six, and because they had it on replay and I was just like, I said to my son, why do you like this game? Like, it's just so weird. But anyway, they're good Kiwi kids now. Yeah.
You going to take them to Canada at some point?
Yeah, we have to, but who knows when, eh?
Yeah. Because whereabouts in Canada are you from?
Calgary. Yeah.
Oh, Calgary. That's cold, isn't it?
Yes. It's cold, But I'll tell you what, I've never been so cold my first year moving to New Zealand. Like, I don't know what, this is the one, like my one gripe with New Zealand, but I'm not sure what all these Scottish settlers thought when they were building these like wood huts, with no insulation.
Yeah.
Like, it gets to 5 degrees here in the winter, people. It's colder inside the house than outside. This makes no sense. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's all right. We've sorted it now. We've got insulation now.
That's good.
Initially, it was just like, whereas in Canada, you're walking around in -30 with a t-shirt, because you basically go from your warm house to your warm car to your warm workplace. Pretty different. Yeah.
Well, hopefully over time, New Zealand will take some advice from Canada. Now, if anybody wants to follow you on social media, where is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, Hatch Invest is so even though our company's name's Hatch, a lot of our kind of monikers are Hatch Invest, because that's what was available. So you can find us on Instagram. If you want to more kind of read a bit more of our content, you might see that on LinkedIn and Facebook. Like I said, Facebook group, hatchinvest.nz is our website, although we're looking at kind of changing the look and feel of that a little bit. So stay tuned for that. So and like hello@hatchinvest.nz is our customer support, and we're like pretty proud of our really speedy response time and engaging with our investors. So always available there.
Do you answer the questions sometimes?
Do you know that over the lockdown, which was let's say it was 5, because like I said, we went into lockdown with like not many people on the team, And I don't know were we in lockdown for like 6 or 7 weeks? I answered being like replied to and closed conversations like 1,500 over that period.
1,500.
Yeah, because I'm backup, like I'm just the GM. I just make sure everything works, and anyone's unhappy, I fix it. And so when you've got this like poor, like 1 to 2 people working customer support tickets, and you've got hundreds of people asking how they can invest and I'm like, I got to get stuck in. So, and then I don't sleep very well. So you'll often find me up at like 1 or 2 a.m. answering tickets too. So, hey man, if you reach out then you'll hear from me too.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know.
I don't sleep very much. Yeah. But hey, I think it's so important that like all of us, like we've got a couple of fantastic senior co-founders, and it's like you got to stay connected to your, everyone who's using your product, right from being on social media to answering tickets, because that's how you kind of build something with your customers as opposed to building something for your customers. Does that make sense? Anyway.
Yeah, and I think that actually
important.
It builds trust between you and the customer as well, if they feel they can always talk to you when you're there. So it does help.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I'll be using it once I start actually investing.
No, do. And we don't advertise a phone number because that just feels so non-digital. But quite often we'll get people that are like, can you phone me? And I'm like, just send them my way, because I love talking to our investors or potential investors. Just to even chat. I had a great chat with who's probably, I don't know how, like, let's say he was like 25, he'd saved up a chunk of cash, and he was just wondering, it's now a great time, and what should I, and of course I can't give him any advice, but we just talked through like what he was looking to do with the money, and it was just great. We just talked for half an hour about investing, and not totally geeked out, like you said, but just like general, like, I think he didn't back himself. He was like, oh, and I was like, just the way he was talking, like, I'm like, you got it. You've got this. Like, just back yourself and stick to your plan. Do your research, read the news, in the mornings, and you'll be right. And so I'm really inspired by chatting with people.
That's good. And that 10-day course, is that on your website?
It's on our website, Hatch Getting Started. Hatch Getting Started course is what it's called. Yeah. And super easy. Again, that's, like I said, it's just the easiest thing to, if you're not feeling quite sure yet, do that.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it. Hey, I'm probably going to wrap up there, but this has been lovely. This has been lovely chatting to you. I've been wanting to talk to you.
Yeah, great to chat with you.
Because I'm like, I'm not investing until I talk to her. So put a image. What is it? What's the line? What's the saying? Put a
face to the name.
Yeah. Put a face to the name. That's the line. Yeah. Because I like to know. Because considering I was emailing you and I'm like, I kind of have an idea, but it's different when you talk to someone as well.
Awesome. That's great. That's great to connect. I love what you're doing.
Oh, thanks. And I'll have to get you on the show again in the near future.
Cool.
With all these exciting things that you're working on.
Look forward to chatting about it.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Reese. Nice to chat.
Yep. That's the show, everyone. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe.